welcome to week 7 of the Gambling Show. I'm here with Yanni. How's it going, man?
What's up, buddy?
We'll go over it here in just a couple seconds, but exciting stuff from the Gambling Show. I hope you guys have been tailing because we've been on a heater. You're either hot or you're due, and we've been hot. So we'll start with the week 6 recap. I'll go first. We had a 4-1 week. I opened up with the Bears and the Jaguars in London. I took the Bears -1.5. That came home. That was like a 28-point win. Caleb looked really good. ETN left with an injury. The Jaguars are a disaster right now. I think there's going to be a race between Doug Peterson and Dennis Allen for the next coach fired. We'll keep our eyes on that. I think Doug Peterson's gone for sure if they lose to the Patriots here on Sunday morning. Next was the Redskins +6.5. This was my only miss of week 6. It was a kind of close game. The score ended up being 7-point Ravens win, so I missed by a half a point. It wasn't really ever close though. The Redskins were constantly like 2 scores down. They were kind of like going back and forth. It just came down to the Redskins defense, which I had flagged as not being very good, just not able to stop Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense. Even though they did fine on offense, it just wasn't enough. It was a mistake by me. I wish I had taken it out and replaced it with the Bengals. That didn't look great, but at least it came home. So live and learn. It's all right. I missed. That's the only one I missed, so I did pretty good. Next was the Texans -6.5 against the Patriots. This was very much a square bet coming into the week. I saw a lot of sharps picking the Patriots, a lot of people, just kind of telling you why you should pick the Patriots here. I just thought 6.5 points was too few for this Texans team against a Patriots side that has looked terrible ever since week 3. Here's the thing, though. Drake May looks good. I think Drake May is bringing a lot more to that Patriots side than Jacoby Brissett was. I think that Patriots fans should be happy to have Drake May running the show. He played better against this Texans defense than Caleb Williams even did in week 2, but it's just it was just too few points, and I was glad to take that. I'm gonna leave the Steelers for Yanni. That was one of our consensus picks of the week that came home. But I'll take the Lions -3. We were both on that. Not only were we right, we were the most right you could possibly be about the game. It was not even close. It was a blowout halfway through the second quarter. They were doing stuff like splitting Dan Skipper out wide to try and catch a pass. They were running hook and ladders on the Cowboys. They just looked embarrassed. Mike McCarthy's job is in question now. The Cowboys are starting to melt down. I don't want to say I told you so, but I said that this was going to be a start of a narrative 2 weeks ago against that Ravens team. It's happening. The melt is happening. This Cowboys team, they are just not what they were before, especially without Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence on that defense. So after last week, right, I hit my 3-leg parlay. That gave me $674.34 right off the bat. And then I hit the Bears pick, so add a little bit of extra juice on that. I was able to finally make my way to the green. Just 3 weeks ago, I was -$600. I was down 6 units, and over this last 3 weeks, I've swung my point total, or I guess money total, by like 8 or 9 units. Absolutely insane work. I'm happy to see it. My season record is now over 500. Like I've said before, my ultimate goal in this is to be in the green and be over 500. It took a lot of work, but finally achieving that, looking to keep it on schedule this week.
Okay, for me, the Buccaneers came home. Uh, I don't really know what to say about that game. That was just pretty straightforward, right? They played good football. The Steelers and the Raiders were obviously me and Ted's consensus bet. I'm really proud of us this year that we're 6-0 in our consensus bets. That's hard to do, man, even though it's not a huge number of bets. It's just we don't compare notes on these things before. We don't sit there and put our heads together. It's kind of that we both have our own process, right? We both work it out. And I don't know, just to see that whatever it is, our evaluations of the game seem to be synchronizing in a really good way. I'm very proud of 6-0. We'll see how they go the rest of the year. Totally possible we get on a losing streak. That's how these things work, right? It's not always all the way up and then stays up forever. But really proud of that, man. That game was never close to me, and I don't know why the line was like that. I don't know why the market will not recognize that the Raiders are one of the worst teams in football, in my view. Max Crosby's asking to get out of there now. It's just a mess, man. Ted went over the Lions. And then pretty funny, just a note I wanted to make. We each tried to talk each other out of our picks that we lost this week. Ted goes, dude, the Panthers are an over machine. Bad defense, good offense. What are you doing? I thought I knew better. I didn't really have as strong of an opinion on his Redskins pick. I just said I would not take them at that. I know the number's good, but I think the defense won't be able to stop them, and they weren't. So maybe if we had collabed a little harder, we could each had a 5-0 week, but that's fine. It's awesome anyway. And then the Bengals at 3.5. Look, I got really lucky, man, with that Chase Brown touchdown at the end that a lot of guys would have taken a knee on the one on anyway. I don't really want to brag on that. Actually, to me, I had called that pick free money, and I think I was wrong. I think the Giants defense is way better than I thought. They went in there against one of the most loaded offenses in football and played a really good game. But sometimes luck is part of it. Sometimes you do get those weird odds and ends of a game that push things your way. So far on the year, right? So I hit everything except for my parlay. Which put me up on the week. So far at the year, I'm up 3.13 units or $313 if you're gambling $100 a unit. And I'm 18-12 on the year. Very proud of it. Trying to be careful, trying to keep it going, and we'll see how things shape up this week.
Yeah, man, hitting it 18-12 is a 60% clip right now. That's professional gambler level, dude. You're killing it, and I guess I forgot what else I was gonna say.
Well, no, one thing you didn't say though that I meant to say about yours, you were at negative 660 going into week 3. You have turned this thing around by 10 units in the last 3 to 4 weeks.
You know,
That's awesome.
that's what happens when I hit 3 parlays in a row, right? Like it's just when you hit those parlays, the money starts stacking up. Oh yeah, I remembered. We are 6-0 in consensus over the last 3 weeks. We did lose a couple at the beginning of the year, but I mean, as the year has gone on, we've just continued to hit more and more picks and have better and better picks to give you guys over the week. So I hope you guys have been trailing. It's been good.
Sorry,
But
did I say 6-0 in the year? Or yeah, it was 6-0. We're on a 6-0 streak.
yeah. And without further ado, let's reveal week 7. I'll go first. I'm opening up with a parlay here. Let's see if I can hit my 4th one in a row. I'm taking the Lions money line and the Eagles -3 against the New York Giants, Yanni's second team. He didn't pick against them this week, so I had to do it. Then I'm also taking the 49ers -1.5, the Jets -1.5, and the Ravens -3.5. If the Lions and Eagles parlay hits, that returns $385. If the 3 single games hit, that returns $568.78. On a 5-0 week, I would make $953.78. The ticket cost is $400 because I'm doing the $100 parlay with the Lions and the Eagles. And like I said before, we are finally made it in the green. We're finally over 500. Just trying to keep it on track here and keep the good weeks coming.
Yeah, man, Ted is on fire. He's been braver than me with those parlays. I gave him a little crap for it last week, but that was awesome. Okay, so I'm taking Texans +2.5 at Green Bay, Falcons -3 at home against Seattle. We're consensus on the Lions. We are consensus on the Jets, even though Ted's going money line on the Lions. We have a consensus there. And then I am sticking with my my read on the Bengals. We'll see. More to come on that later. But I'm going to ride them for one more week as road favorites in division. Risky business, but I feel pretty good about it. I don't know. I'm trying a week with no parlays this week. I think I just got a little frustrated that I had missed like 3 or 4 picks where I got it right, but then the other leg of the parlay fell. So I want to see how I do on this week. It's always a little risky because you are gambling a $500 ticket instead of a $400 or $300 ticket. But we'll see. We'll see. So potential return 968 on a $500 ticket. I'm sitting there in the green at 313 or 3.13 units, 18-12. Okay, so I'm going first. That's going to be the Texans on the road at the Packers. Texans getting +2.5. I love the Texans at plus money. I don't really care what the context is. I just, dude, CJ Stroud is one of my favorite dudes in the NFL. He's such an old man already. He reminds me like a lot of, I don't even know, like prime Peyton Manning maybe in terms of the disposition, but the clutchness, right? Peyton had issues with being clutch or turnover. CJ Stroud to me is just the man. And if you're going to give me plus money on the road, yeah, I like it. I like it. And apparently so do the whales and so do the bettors. 85% of the dollars on the Texans against the spread, 70% of the numerical bets. That is a huge skew in both consensus and public opinion in this game. And look, so the Packers rush defense, they are ranked okay, but Joe Mixon, I think, has just been so damn good this year. I think having Joe on that team does fundamentally change what the team does. They're missing Nico Collins, right? But and the Packers do rely on turnovers, right? But they hemorrhage passing yards. So to me, it's an issue of Nico Collins is gone. That's not great, but they have Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell and Joe Mixon in the receiving game. It's just a fantastic, set of players, right? And if CJ Stroud does not make the mistakes that maybe a Sam Darnold makes when you're playing the Packers, that maybe a Jalen Hurts makes when you're playing the Packers, Jalen had a couple plays against them that were just bizarre. I don't think they're going to be able to rely on turnovers the way they've relied on them all year. And I know that they're two safeties that you see that stat all the time online. They have the number 1 and 2 ranked PFF graded safeties in the NFL playing on the same defense. Well, sure, that will limit over the top down the field passing, but that's not. The Texans have Dell and the Texans have Diggs. They're going to sit there and kill them in those short to intermediate routes, I think, and Joe Mixon out of the backfield. So if Stroud isn't turning the ball over and if they're going to hemorrhage passing yards like they have been all year, I like the matchup. I really do. And then on the other side of it, the Texans are 3rd in total defense, 4th against the pass, 14th against the rush. This is a good defense, man, a good defense. And what it feels like is the Packers rely on these explosive passing plays, these giant plays from Jaden Reed, from Watson, from Love. Love is prolific in one sense, right? In his offensive output. He's prolific in another sense in terms of the mistakes and weird shit he does. I know it broke his way with that passing play, and everyone was saying it's one of the most incredible passes when he's fallen off his back foot and he dropped that back shoulder to Dobbs for the 2nd touchdown of the game last week. To me, dude, that is a ball that should have been picked in any real. He got really lucky. And again, luck is part of football, right? Luck applies to every quarterback. So it's not really fair to pick one out and say, but on that specific play, dude, I see a lot of that out of Love, just weird stuff that he does that, breaks his way sometimes, creates a lot of interceptions other times. And against a defense like this, against a team that's coached as well as DeMeco Ryans is coached, and the Texans run the same offensive scheme as the Packers, right? So at least in the same coaching tree. I don't, those two matches are so different to me. The Texans offense versus the Packers defense versus the Packers offense versus the Texans defense. I love it. I love this pick. I'm totally happy with it. I see some nice long drives for the Texans. I see the Packers turning it over. Maybe the Packers force their turnovers. That is what they do. They're excellent at it. But CJ Stroud is developing leaps and bounds every week, man. He's such a good football player. I think they're going to pull this out in spectacular fashion.
Yeah, this is definitely a big game that I didn't feel confident enough to bet in. I will say this though, I trust CJ Stroud far more than I trust Jordan Love. Jordan Love, he's very flashy, right? He makes a lot of plays. It's good football to watch, right? And it's very entertaining. But if that's my quarterback, I'm concerned with the level of decision making. I've called him Will
Yeah,
Levis with good PR. I know Yanni is just super
that's
against that idea, but man, some of the things he does is just like, what are you doing, right? So I don't know. I do think Joe Mixon has looked great this year. This Packers team just got destroyed by Saquon Barkley week 1 and by Jonathan Taylor week 2 as well. I think Jonathan Taylor rushed for like 160 yards on this defense.
yeah.
They live on the big play, right? And I trust CJ to protect the ball. First, more than I trust Jordan Love to protect the ball. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Texans win the turnover differential here. I think that in a toss up like this, taking the plus money is probably smart. I will tell you though that a lot of the professional bettors they kind of view the Texans as like the most public team that there is. So they kind of saw that they were only getting 2.5 points, right? Like that's kind of the wrong side of 3, and they're kind of thinking that it's a trap game. I personally don't think so, and it looks like the public doesn't really agree with that either, right? With 85% of the money, 70% of the bet. So I think, if the sharps want to stay away, that's fine. I like your side though. I think this is a good bet.
Okay, another one of mine. You guys have to hear me talk a bunch to start. Falcons -3 at home against the Seahawks. Apparently, I am not sharp on this one, right? 23% of the money, 44% of the bets means there is a lot of big bettors have come in on the side of the Seahawks. That's fine. I'm fading them. Look, the Seahawks decline has officially begun, at least in me and Ted's opinion. I actually, to give you an idea of where we were both at with these teams, I thought the Seahawks would be hunting for a wild card all year. I was really high on McDaniel, really high on their offensive coordinator. Ted was not. Ted thought this was a garbage team. He was not swayed by their first 3 games of the season. I don't know if I was swayed, but I wanted to see how they did when they got into the elite teams, right? And look, here's kind of what's been going on. The Falcons have played. They played Skylar Thompson, Tim Boyle, Jacoby Brissett, and Bo Nix in his rookie debut for their first 3 games of the year. That really skewed what they looked like as a defense and as a team. And even then, they went to overtime with the Patriots. Um, Kirk Cousins is not that. Brock Purdy is not that. Jared Goff is not that, who completed 18 straight passes in a row. This is a bad rushing defense. They get run all over. They are the 26th ranked rushing defense going against Bijan and Algier, coming off of Bijan's best game of the year. And Algier's a freaking battering ram, man. I love watching them run the ball. And their passing weapons have all taken different turns lighting up the scoreboard this year. The Seahawks defense is really injured. And Geno Smith is passing 40 to 55 times a game and going against a top 10 passing defense, right? And Geno loves to have turnovers in big moments. That's what he does. There's nothing wrong with the team being, it's not, well, it's kind of an insult, right? It's a slight. To call a team a can crusher is like, look, if you play an average to below average team, I like your odds. But if you play an above average team or a potential playoff team like the Falcons are eyeing probably their division, right, this year, and the Falcons have gone to war with some of the absolute best teams in the NFL. They had probably the game of the year against the Bucks. They played Philly and the Chiefs to start the year, and they came out of that 1-1. And probably should have been 2-0 if they get a holding call in the end zone. To me, I think that the market is not caught up to the fact that this Falcons team is very, very good. I had some consternation about. I did not think that Kirk Cousins was healthy. He was not driving into throws the first 2 weeks. I thought, oh my God, his career's over. This Achilles, whatever it was, he said that he was dealing with like mental issues, right? Being on the field. He has passed those. He's looked excellent. This team is rolling. This was the scheme that was born for a Kirk Cousins type player. And it looks like they've put the players around him and the defense around him to be successful. And I will be probably picking against the Seahawks quite a bit whenever they play a competent football team. This is one of those times. Give me the Falcons.
Yeah, I think that 3 points is pretty short, right? So I don't think Vegas is giving this Falcons team a ton of respect here. I didn't pick this game simply because the Falcons have played teams really, really close all year, right? They've kind of been the cardiac kids unless they were playing the Carolina Panthers. So I just kind of had a weird feeling about this one. But I think you're absolutely right, though. This Seahawks team, they are fool's gold. They have they have flashy skill position players, right? And like when Geno drops back 50 times a game, he's going to get passing yards. So there were a lot of people that were really high on this team, especially with the 3-0 start. But I think it's finally come home. I think people are finally realizing, oh, okay, the Seahawks team, they can't stop anybody. Geno is a flawed quarterback, right? Like their offensive line, they just don't block well. So Kenneth Walker, if he's not breaking off like a broken play touchdown, like he's not very efficient on a per touch basis. So yeah, for all of those reasons, I like the Seahawks. I like the Falcons here. I like the side here. I was just a little weirded out by how many close games the Falcons have been in so far. I think I even
Yeah.
texted you against the Bucks in that great Falcons and Bucks game. I was like, Falcons win by more than a touchdown challenge, impossible. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm a little superstitious here, but I think you absolutely have the right side. I think this is a good bet. All right, next we have our first consensus pick of the week, and I am thrilled to fade the Vikings here. The Lions are going into Minnesota to play the Vikings. Yanni is taking the Lions plus 1.5, and I'm just taking the Lions money line, which is just to win the game. The over/under in this game is 50.5 points, so Vegas thinks there will be a lot of points. 84% of the money is on the Lions against the spread, and 80% of the money is on the Lions money line. And then 78% of bets are on the Lions against the spread, and 58% of bets are on the Lions money line. So there's big action on Detroit on all fronts here. The public, the whales, the sharps. I'll say this again. I'll just say this every time it pops up. When you see a line, if you like an underdog flat out to win a game and the line isn't crossing a key number, a lot of times you're just going to be better off taking them money line, right? Because like the only situation I play myself out of money here, right, is if the Vikings win by exactly 1 point, right? Like, what are the chances the Vikings win by exactly 1 point? I think the Lions are just dead, just flat out the right side here. So I'll lay it on the money line. This is, like I said, a consensus pick of ours, and we're 6-0 on these over the last 3 weeks. So don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much here, but We've been on fire when we're both seeing the same thing. The Vikings are coming off a bye, so I mean, in theory, right, they'll have extra prep for this game. But quite honestly, I think they're the most overvalued team I've seen in quite some time. I don't know exactly if that's where Yanni's brain is at, but man, they have a couple of impressive wins, right? The Vikings, I believe they're 5-0 against the spread as well. So if you've been betting on the Vikings, you've been making money. But I don't see any situation that they should be favored over this Lions team, who in my mind is a top 2 or 3 team in the NFC right now. The Vikings are fourth in scoring defense, going against the Lions, who hung 49 against the Cowboys last week in embarrassing fashion. They just did whatever they wanted to the Cowboys, that Cowboys team. I get that there's been a lot of love for Brian Flores this year. Everyone has just been so excited about his zone blitz defensive scheme, but the fact of the matter is the talent on this defense is not as good as it was last year even, and I don't think that Brian Flores is going to draw up fancy enough zone blitzes to stop this Lions juggernaut on offense, right? Like, how effective is a zone blitz when you're just battering David Montgomery up the middle? You know what I mean? Like, that only gets you so far. Sam Darnold also hasn't played in a negative game script this year, just based on how the games have gone for the Vikings, right? Like, they've been comfortably ahead or leading in almost every game they've been in. So like, we haven't seen this yet. What happens when the Vikings are down 17 points because they can't stop the Lions and Sam Darnold has to chase a lead, right? Sam Darnold has to push the ball down the field. I know that he's made throws down the field before this year. He's shown that he can do it, but what he's also shown is he's prone to make Sam Darnold mistakes, right? Like, I'm more inclined to believe the body of his career is what he's going to look like in a negative game script versus this 5 game sample size we had at the beginning of the year. And that's not to say that Sam Darnold has not improved as a player. I think the coaching has helped him. I think that he's been a great story this year, right? But this seems like a tall task to me. Aiden Hutchinson obviously is done for the year. If you guys saw that injury, that was one of the more gnarly ones on the year. But at the same time, right? Aaron Jones is also going to be out, and it's going to be Ty Chandler is the featured back for the Vikings. So I don't think they'll be able to take advantage of Aiden Hutchinson's absence like they would have if Aaron Jones was playing. And then last point, Yanni wanted to make sure to throw this in there. I don't know if this has legs. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. But the Lions don't run a Shanahan scheme on offense, and so far all of the Vikings' big wins this year, which is exactly the 49ers, the Texans, and the Packers, are all part of the Shanahan tree on offense. And there's kind of a theory, right? Does Brian Flores just have the has Brian Flores cracked the code to beat the Shanny system, right? I don't know if it's that simple, but this Lions team with Ben Johnson is not part of the Shanahan family of offense, and I think this is going to be a different animal for them. I think this is going to be. I don't even think it's going to be very close, to be honest with you. I think this Vikings team is going to get exposed, and I think the value I've been chasing trying to fade this Vikings team is probably going to be gone next week after what we see this week. Give me the Lions. Yanni, what are your thoughts on this?
So first of all, I was actually kind of surprised. I looked it up while you were talking. Aaron Jones is on the wrong side of questionable all week, but they said they think he's going to try to suit up this week. I don't think, dude, you're getting he's done this before where he goes out there injured and kind of doesn't play. I would say he's a non-factor even if he goes. He's I think he's either got a hamstring or a quad or something. Um, no, I mean, so to me, this really just comes down to is the Vikings passing game going to be able to carry them in the game? And I think the Lions have all of a sudden showed some signs of life. They were getting some turnovers and all this sort of stuff. No, and it, I guess, I get point of contention, point of debate, whatever. It's a mild disagreement me and Ted have had about is Flores really driving the team defensively? Have they just gotten a little lucky? What is it? It's up for interpretation. It's hard to say when you see these games play out. My feeling is that that is one of the most impressive 3-win streaks. When you look at the talent that the teams had on offense that they beat, right? The Lions or the Niners, the Packers, and the Texans back to back to back. I think that's a really good coaching job, man. I really do. I don't think the Vikings have the team to be hanging in these games. I think it is that they are coached and schemed up in such a way that they are playing way above their skis, at least on defense. And one of the reasons that Ben Johnson has had such an advantage in the NFL is he runs a totally novel offense, dude. Totally novel. It's really, I love watching it. And look at the damage he's been doing the last couple of years with it. So it's more just like an interesting trend to watch with the teams. I don't know. Does all of a sudden that, because like a third or almost a half the team, half the league at this point runs that Shanahan scheme, does it all of a sudden look very different when they're playing a novel offensive scheme like the Lions? Our bet says yes. Jared Goff is devastatingly effective against the blitz. I expect a really big Jared Goff day for a lot of reasons. I feel very comfortable with the Lions here.
Yeah, and I'll just throw this hot take in there. I don't know if it's really a hot take or not. You guys could be the judge. I think there's a very real chance this Vikings team is still the worst team in the NFC North in the division with how Caleb and the Bears are starting to shape up. We'll see. I think that these teams are going to beat the crap out of each other once they start playing in division, and those records will start to kind of fall a little bit closer to like the 10-6s, the 11-5s. All right, next one's me as well, and I'm taking the Eagles -3 against Yanni's second team, the New York Giants. 92% of the money is on the Eagles against the spread here, and 84% of bets are on the Eagles against the spread here. So there's a heavy consensus from the whales, from the public, from me on this Philly side. I'll start with this. Trend betters will not like this pick whatsoever. Guys like Chad Millman will tell you to pick the Giants here because I'm picking on a road favorite in a divisional matchup. So, I mean, a lot of times these teams see each other a lot, right? Like, and there is something to being familiar with your opponent. So I get that, but I think that the talent discrepancy is so vast here that I'm happy to pick the Eagles. So the Eagles are an ugly 3-2 this year. The wins that they've had, other than probably week one against the Packers, have looked shaky, right? They barely squeaked by the Saints. Last week they only beat the Browns by 4. Nick Sirianni was yelling at Philly fans. It's been like not very good looking, right? So there's definitely a little bit of hesitancy around this Philly side. And the Giants are a sexy 2-4. I mean, the fact of the matter is, after allowing 28 points to the Vikings week one, they haven't allowed more than 21 points to a single opponent. We saw that disgusting Sunday night game between the Bengals where they were in it the entire time. We saw, that they're playing teams tight right now. But I mean, put how the results have looked aside, this Philly team is just much better than the Giants, right? The Giants, they're getting Malik Neighbors back this week, so that's exciting. But like the bottom line is that he's attached to Danny Dimes, which is sketchy, right? Like your wide receiver is only as good as your quarterback can allow them to be, right?
Yeah.
And even if I think I love Malik Neighbors as a player, this is the reason I did not draft him anywhere in fantasy. Was this a mistake on mine? On my end, maybe, but like I just think Danny Dimes is not a real NFL quarterback. He's marginally improved this year. He's looked like almost passable as a real quarterback, but based on the way this Giants team has been playing, right, especially on defense, they should be winning some of these games. I think that Danny Dimes is the thing that's holding them back. So yeah, I mean Cooper DeJean too is absolute force multiplier. In his first like start of the year last week against the Browns, he got 6 tackles and a sack. So I mean, is he going to be Danny Dimes' worst nightmare? Is Dimes going to lose this game and get beaten up and have nightmares about Cooper DeJean? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think Nick Sirianni is just going to get disrespectful here. I think this Eagles team just has talent all across the board. They got their big dogs. They got AJ Brown. They got Devontae Smith here. The Saquon Barkley revenge game too cannot be stated enough. I wouldn't be shocked like to see Nick Sirianni try and give Saquon like 5 touchdowns if he can. I mean, I don't know. All of the signs point to the Eagles here. It's a good number. I only need a field goal to push. Anything more than that is a win. I like it. I'm on it. What do you think, Yanni?
Well, I think you have the right side. I would have picked what you. I think everything you said was accurate. I think Cooper DeJean is the world's first, their most effective diversity hire I've ever seen. He's out there killing it. I don't like Nick Sirianni at all. I think he is the reason they're not a good football team. Like, not a better performing football team is purely because they have a bad head coach. I've loved the coordinators. The 2 years they've been good. This year and then the year before last year, it really felt like that was a coordinator-driven event. And the coordinators here. So the only thing to defend my Giants a little bit, right? The reason I took a long, hard look at this game, and maybe I'm going to regret not taking it, right? But I think Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator for the Giants, who ran the Titans defense for the 2 years under Vrabel, dude, that guy, like, he is nasty, man. Whatever his whole system of working off of a defensive line that can pressure the passer and control the line with the rush. What was the statistic we looked up for their rushing? I forget what it was. I don't remember.
I believe they're ninth against the rush.
Ninth against the rush, and they haven't allowed over 20 points in 5 weeks or something, 4 weeks or
Um,
something. Yeah, whatever.
ever since week one, no team has gone over 21 on them, which is shocking,
Dude,
honestly.
like that's like a really well, and Dayball I think knows what he's doing on offense. He's just battling the Danny Dimes effect. Dude, that's like a really good coached offense, right? And it's a divisional matchup at home. And if Saquon can't get going, just my feeling about the Eagles is I'm wondering if Jalen has either regressed or not grown as a passer to the point where he's sort of just at like a Madden style throw the go route kind of guy. Throw the go route, hit the slants and drags, and let your receivers do the work. But can he actually sit there and nickel and dime a team and play a grindy football game where he needs to make good decisions, make good reads, hit intermediate routes, layer throws, right? That I just don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know how Eagles fans would feel about Jalen's passing lately, and his rushing seems to have declined, like his explosive rushing. So I just don't know. I'm curious what we see here. Dude, all hell is going to break loose on narratives about this Eagles team if they don't win. I think you have the right side of it. Without a doubt, you have the right reasons for your pick. I think the Giants are a very live dog here.
In the words of our favorite John Middlecoff, Jalen is a go ball thrower. Um, I think
Right.
that everything that you said, right? I don't think that he has the ability to nickel and dime teams. I don't think he has the ability to layer throws, but I just don't think that's what this Eagles team is. To
Right.
me, especially this year, Jalen has looked a little bit faster when he's taken off to run, and I think this is a Saquon Barkley centric team, right? They're a Saquon Barkley team behind a good offensive line. I think that last week against the Browns, I mean, they were going up against Jeff Schwartz, right? Like that's a great defensive coordinator. I think he had a great
Yep.
game plan to try and force
Yep.
Saquon to not be effective and kind of force Jalen to drop back, right? I get that the Giants D line is really good. I get that they've looked good, but stopping Saquon is a tough task, especially in a game he's going to be fired up for, right? I'm sure this
Yeah.
Giants side will be too. We'll see. I really like a lot of things that New York has going on, right? Like I think they probably are a competent quarterback away from being at
Yeah.
least in the conversation for the wild card, a wild card spot, that type of thing. But I just think this is too few points against this Eagles side that I still, as weeks go on, right, this probably looks like a dumber and dumber take, but I honestly think the Eagles are a top three team in the NFC. I even like them more than the Lions, actually, which probably looks ridiculous right now given like the media narratives surrounding this Philly team. But I think that the way they've built it is Jalen doesn't need to be Brock Purdy. Jalen just needs to do what Jalen does,
Uh,
right?
oh my God, that phrase. Oh, that phrase.
I know,
That
right?
phrase for me because
We've arrived.
it's true. Well, let me just ask you, what do you think happens if they cannot run the offense through Saquon in this game? Do you trust Jalen to go put up like 232 touchdowns?
I think
They can't.
Jalen would probably. I think what would happen if the Giants are able to bottle up
They
Saquon is there's going to
Saquon.
be a lot of keepers. There's going to be a lot of keepers from Jalen, I think, and he's going to try and hit periodic go balls, right? Like maybe a 15-yard out to Devontae Smith, that type of thing, right? Like I don't expect him to pick apart the middle of the field, though, right? I don't expect him to have a 50 drop back game where he's completing 60 or more percent of his passes, right? That's just
Yeah,
not who Jalen is. But
right. But so you think even like say that the box score at the end is 60 yards for Saquon. You feel like there is still a path to victory for the Eagles.
yep, yep.
Okay.
I think
So
if Saquon is 60 or under, I think Jalen's probably the leading rusher in the game.
okay.
Is kind of where I'm
Then
at with it.
right. All right. Like I said, I'm going to stick with my Bengals. My Bengals hot hand. I'll explain why getting into your Bengals at the Browns. Bengals 5.5 on the road. Never a good feeling taking a pretty big number for a divisional road favorite. Like, ugh. But look, 85% of the money is on the Bengals here. 65% of the numerical bets against the spread. This is a huge, dude. The whaling. 85% to 15% on the money that's come in this game for the Bengals. The whales agree. The public agrees. I agree. I know trend bettors would say this is the wrong call. Look, trends are really good, man, for some things, but for other things, they're just not. Like not everything's the same because it falls within a trend. And in this case, I you got to look at the rosters here. You got to look at the offenses here. Um, uh, the Browns are run by a convict with 27 allegations. We all know what the deal is, dude. It's got to be a creepy locker room being in there. It's just got to feel weird when you walk in there every day. And look, the Browns are waving the white flag on the season. You do not get rid of your wide receiver one on your team, and one of the better wide receivers in football, who's normally ranked, in production anywhere from like 18 to 22 at the end of the year. We see with Amari Cooper. You don't trade that guy away when you're still competing, and you don't. Everyone knows what's going on. The reason that their head coach is out there every week saying I won't bench Deshaun is because he's awful. And they're in this weird situation where once you bench him, you're on the hook for the 160 million to come. You can't bench him. The ownership's without a doubt telling him you can't bench him. So then their players that are playing know they're wasting their time. Why are we out here? His O lineman won't pick him up off the ground. They get rid of their wide receiver one. Dude, this thing is over. It's over. Deshaun's a dead man walking. This team's a dead man walking. They're the corpse of the Browns somehow. When you think of where they were as a franchise, they are actually, I would say, it's one of the most dysfunctional states I've ever seen them in. And I know the wins losses don't reflect that the way it has in the past. They've had the 0-16, 1-15 teams. I am talking about from like a fundamental health of a football franchise, like in a business sense, even. They're a mess. And then here's kind of where I'm willing to stake my claim here. Okay, me and Ted actually went over. He goes, dude, I think the Jets are like a wild card team. I said, no, they're not a wild card contending team. And we spent like 20 minutes the other night just going through and looking at the rankings in the AFC and the NFC and seeing who's where. And I think the AFC is wide open, dude, even for these teams with bad records right now. And in my opinion, the 2-4 Bengals, because of their roster, because of their quarterback, and because it seems like the Browns are going downhill in their division. It seems like the Steelers are about to start going downhill in their division. They're doing everything they can to be headed in that direction. If they played today, I would take the Bengals against the Steelers at home or on the road. My feeling is this is a playoff team. My feeling is Jamar Chase is playing the highest level of wide receiver in the NFL, all things considered. When you consider catch and run, when you consider the speed, the deep ball, the short routes, the route running, I think Jamar Chase has actually taken that crown of the most skilled receiver in football. So, and then they went and loaded the offense, dude. All junior is playing really good football, man. Chase Brown looks like he is ready to break out. They have a Hammer and Moss for short yardage. They added two really good receivers in the draft. Higgins is playing the best football I've seen Higgins play in a year or two. And Joe Burrow looks healthier every week, coming off of a potential career-ending injury. When you see someone improving every week, I'm going to keep kind of riding that train all the way up. I guess 5.5. I mean, what would be the biggest number? Maybe 6.5 if the Bengals were totally loaded. So maybe I'm only getting like a point of value here. I don't think the Browns are going to be able to stop them at all. I think Chase Brown is a legitimate offensive weapon back there, an explosive rush rate. I expect this to be a pretty comfortable game. I don't think this is going to be a sweat. And dude, the Browns have to be right there to just throwing in the towel. They all know it. Everyone knows it. The coaching staff is dejected. The offensive line knows they're blocking for a dope. The receivers know there's nobody there. The only cool thing is Nick Chubb is coming back. He's going to get 5 carries, dude. They're not going to workhorse him this week. And Nick Chubb looks like he's doing those ISIS hostage videos when he does press conferences now. Did you see that this week? They're all his teammates cheering for him, and he's sitting there trying to smile. He looks like a Make-A-Wish kid that took a picture up there. Dude, it's miserable. It's miserable. And what a shame to see one of the greatest pure runners that the NFL has ever seen in Nick Chubb, and one of the truest professionals the league has ever seen. To see him come back to this, dude, imagine the fighting back, right, from a reconstructed knee like that, to come back to this. It's insulting to football. It's insulting to their fans. I can't wait. I cannot wait to watch them lose another football game and continue to lose until they put in Jameis, until they cut their losses with Deshaun and either bench or outright cut him. Eat the money. Sunk cost fallacy. The money's gone. Give me the Bengals this week comfortably.
Listen, man, I think you're absolutely on the right side here, fading this Browns team. I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later with Tug. The experiment is over. Like, I don't know how much more they need to see of this, right? Like, the guy just doesn't have it anymore. The only reason I did not take this game is the Bengals looked so bad to me on Sunday night last week that I thought there is no way they should be favored by 5.5 points ever. That's the only reason why. That's not to say that everything doesn't point towards the Bengals, right? Joe Burrow is looking better. Jamar Chase is finally shaken off the rust from his holdout. T. Higgins is a factor. Now they have their best running back actually playing more. Like this Chase Brown thing, it was just a matter of time. I think
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally see the vision here. The Bengals have done this thing all year where they've like played to the exact level of their
Yeah.
competition. They played the Chiefs tight, but at the same time they played the New York Giants tight. It's like,
Ravens. They went to a
mhm,
death match with the Ravens.
yep, yep, last second against the Ravens. They've really they're kind of, I don't know. It just worries me. What if they come out here and just look terrible because the Browns are terrible? I think you're on the right side. I just didn't have the stones to take it myself, though, especially in the AFC North, where sometimes the teams play each other tough. But
What do you think that is? What do you think, Todd? Do you think it's bad coaching? Do you think it's that their stars don't set a culture there? Like, do you think it's that they have a culture where they're casual?
I think
What
it's
would
because their defense is so bad, right? Like they have a really terrible defense, and typically, right, I think that anybody playing the Bengals would be live to have a good offensive performance here. Anyone except for the Cleveland Browns, just because their
yeah,
quarterback is so bad, right? I
yeah,
think Zach Taylor is probably not a good football coach. Like if you look at the body of what this Bengals team has been, you had the 1 year where they made the Super Bowl run, right? Where Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase were playing hero ball the entire time. They were able to topple Mahomes in Arrowhead. The last time the Chiefs have lost a playoff game, by the way. But ever since then, he's a losing football coach. He has a losing record. He has a worse record than Brian Dable overall, like as a head coach. Like
yeah.
there's been a lot of losing in Cincinnati. I get that the franchise is snake bitten. I get that there are factors working against them. But I tend to agree with you, right? Like based on what the AFC looks like right now, with Miami struggling with Tua being out, with the Jets off to a bad start, with the Steelers doing whatever it is the Steelers are doing, I think the Bengals are absolutely live. They'll be taking this seriously. This is not a game they'll overlook, even though it is the Brownies on their last legs. I like it. All right, next. Coming back to the well. I'm excited for this. I'm taking the 49ers minus 1.5 this week against the defending Super Bowl champion, undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. The Niners are only getting 20% of the money right now against the spread and 22% of bets against the spread. So I'm fading the public here. I'm, listen, I get it. Am I maybe an overly optimistic Niners fan? I don't know. I would argue that our Niners fans right now are the Warriors fans of the NFL. The We saw a really fascinating thing happen in the NBA with the Golden State Warriors and with Steph Curry joining that organization. The Warriors were a dumpster fire forever. This was not ever at any point in time a good NBA franchise. But once they became good with Steph Curry, once they started getting into the playoffs, these empty arenas, right? This kind of dejected fan base became injected with a bunch of people that were new to the organization, new to being fans, and only knew winning, only knew what winning was like, right? So I think that somewhere along this line of Jim Harbaugh and Kyle Shanahan, we picked up a lot of front runners here in the 49ers fan base. And listen, there's a reason that we are called the faithful as a fan base. It's because we were so unwatchably bad between the early 2000s all the way up until the Jim Harbaugh era. It was a disaster. Mike Nolan 2-14 seasons, Alex Smith going 1 touchdown and 13 interceptions on the year, getting blown out by everyone all of the time. Like it was so hard to be a Niners fan for so long, and that's why they call them the faithful. And now the fortunes have turned. As soon as something starts going a little bit wrong, all of the fans go and run and complain and act like the sky is falling. I'm here to tell you, Niners fans, it's not that bad. It's going to be fine. The Chiefs are severely injured right now. They're missing Rashee Rice. They're missing Isaiah Pacheco. They're relying on 50-year-old Travis Kelce, who spent all week traveling with Taylor Swift, right, and going to the Cleveland Guardians baseball games. They're relying on Kareem Hunt, who's been like off the street for 3 weeks. They're relying on Juju's paper mache legs to carry the load. Like this is the worst the Chiefs' skill position has been in a really long time. There was that Mahomes MVP year 2 years ago, but like at least Juju wasn't as dead then, and then Kelsey was still in his prime. This is like you're getting your C to C plus Travis Kelsey, you're getting Kareem Hunt straight off the street, and you're getting Juju who's been injured and just bad and bouncing around the league now. Like I get that picking against Mahomes as a short favorite or an underdog is usually a losing bet. I get it. Like you know, it's absolutely scary because I think that he's prob even regardless of the start he's been off to this year, I still think he's the best in the league right now. It's just been tough with this offensive situation. But I mean, he can't throw the ball to himself, right? Like there's got to be a critical mass here where he's just not able to will this team to victories at this point. It's an extremely important game for the 49ers too, right? Like it's in their home stadium. It's in Levi's. The Niners have gotten off to a shaky start, dropping 2 games to divisional opponents they absolutely should have won. This 49ers team, if they kind of just handle their business, they're a 5-1 football team right now. And the conversation around surrounding the team is way different. But now the 49ers are in like this weird desperation spot. They got a big win against the Seahawks last week, but the Seahawks are a bad team, right? Like fans are really questioning this team is constructed, right? This is supposed to be a Super Bowl run for these guys. And they're looking, if they can't win this game, they're looking at an under 500 record after like week 7. That's insane. I think this 49ers team knows they need this one. I think this Chiefs team, they're just injured right now. I don't see, if they lose this game, what is the consequence for the Chiefs? They are still the 1 seed in the AFC. They're still the defending Super Bowl champions. I just don't see the urgency here. So, Super Bowl revenge game in our home barn. Let's go. 1.5 is a great number. I only need the Niners to win by 2 points, right? The only situation they win and I don't cover is if they win by exactly 1 point. I don't see it here. Give me the 49ers in the homerist pick of all homer picks. Yanni, what do you think about this 49ers side? I know you love our chances here.
I do. I mean, look, we talked about it, right? I probably would have bet the Chiefs if I was betting on the game because of recent ownage. But I do just want to talk about there's such good narratives to this game. A me and Ted narrative between the two of us. Ted is faithful as a dog, man. I've known Ted for 10 years now. We partied our asses off in Chico, California together for a year. Ever since I have known him, one of Ted's most except for one incident regarding a McKenna. Ted has been the most loyal human being I've ever known in my life. Uh, and I did. Me and him have been on different sides of the spectrum, right? I've been much more negative about the Niners, and I've been that way, by the way, since like week 17, 18 last year, just seeing some things I don't like about the team. Ted has not wavered one bit. I love that he's doubling down here. So that's a personal narrative, but I just want to say the game narratives that are really interesting for this week. Okay, just some things to keep an eye on. The Chiefs have the #1 rated pass defense when they run a blitz. They have the number 32nd rated pass defense when they do not run a blitz. The Niners have the #1 rated pass defense when they do not blitz. They have the last rated pass defense when they blitz. So Mahomes eats the blitz alive. I hope that the Niners have the sense to just sit back in coverage this week and hope that the Chiefs will have to sit there and hope Kelsey works in between the zones. Really curious to see that. I would guess on the other end, what you're going to see is Spagnuolo is going to blitz the shit out of Brock. That is what they're going to do. It's what they did in the Super Bowl. It's what they've been doing all year that's successful. The Niners are going to get blitzed half to death. Spagnuolo specifically called out this week the way that Brock escapes the pocket and does not allow himself to get trapped in the pocket. I would guess they're going to have plays specifically to address that. And so it's interesting, right? The kind of sub narrative that's been going on. Slick Ricky, he is being activated this week. Juwan Jennings is out. Rick Pearsall was one of the highest rated route runners against the man coverage. I believe he might have been #1 in college last year, but he was one of the highest against man coverage. They went and got Ricky Pearsall specifically because of this matchup, specifically because of what man coverage did to the Niners in the Super Bowl. They needed man beating players that'll run these little quick routes and get open against the blitz and be hot routed. That is what Ricky was for. Ricky got shot. He's been on IR. He wasn't going to be activated this week. Juwan Jennings is out. All of a sudden, he's in there. The Niners have had some red zone woes. I think they got him to run a little bit of those slick red zone routes. Just a story to watch. It might be really, really interesting, man, if he gets in there and all of a sudden we see this dynamic against the blitz and in the red zone where Ricky comes through and exactly what they got him for. They took a risk taking him that high. That was a really high draft pick to invest in him. No other team would have taken him there. They had other needs. They took him specifically for this moment. And is he really ready? I don't know. He's coming off a gunshot wound. He missed two months. I don't know. But God, I'm excited to see it. I really am. Looking forward to the game. It's going to be
I
amazing.
think the best case scenario for Ricky Pearsall is like prime Wes Welker, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the type of player that he is. I'm excited to see it, especially with missing CMC and the red zone troubles. Hopefully
Yeah.
Ricky alleviates that. Plus my best ball roster would love it. He was my wide receiver 6. He's been getting me zeros all year, but coming back from a gunshot wound, anytime touchdown, it's a layup.
He's a man beater player. We're going to see it this week. if they give him run. All right, you want to take this consensus, or no?
No,
We have two consensus.
no,
We have
I
one.
think you're a funnier person, so you take this one.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Jets -1.5 at the Steelers. This organic Steelers hate that me and Ted developed this year has been one of the more joyous aspects of my fantasy analyzing career, betting analyzing career. It's really, I call them hate buckets in life. You've run into these things where you can just dump your hatred into them, and then they flow down the river of life, and they're not in your life anymore. And then your hate goes with them, and then the people that are in your life that matter don't have to receive the hate. It's a really healthy thing. I encourage you to do it in traffic. I encourage you to do it with coworkers. Don't shoot anyone. Just hatred, like verbally and emotionally, and then send it out of your life forever. The Steelers are kind of our hate bucket this year, and it feels satisfying. So 77% of the money are on the Jets against the spread, 50% of the bets. Pretty noticeable, 27% differential in the number of the bets and the money in the game. That's it's notable. This is another one of our consensus. We're throwing down another two consensus this week. I'm not sure. Are we 6-2 on the year? 6-1?
I think
Do
it's
you
like
know?
7-2, maybe. We've had a lot of consensus this year.
We got to, yeah. So we
Yeah,
got to go check. We've got a lot of consensus this year. The boards have been kind of weird in terms of value, but look, I mean, we're overwhelmingly doing a great job on these, and so we're putting our reputation on the line again. I don't know for the life of me why this is the Mr. Unlimited debut game. I literally cannot comprehend it. A quarterback that is under 25 years old and has a 5-to-1 touchdown ratio has never been benched in NFL history. In NFL history. And they're doing that to, I don't know, see the ceiling that Russell Wilson might unlock, the ghost of Russell Wilson might unlock. Yeah, he's ass, he's a bum, and this experiment's going to be over quick. I don't know what Tomlin's like. Dude, they had an Osama bin Tomlin meme tweeted from their team after he made this call. Like, I don't know what he's thinking. And then the Steelers declined to comment on it. Like, have we ever seen their culture in this level of disarray? The George Pickens thing, the I don't know, what is it? Is it that Tomlin's losing his touch? Is it that there's not established locker room leaders there, like outside of TJ Watt, and he gets his side of the ball in order? Maybe it's like Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, and that's why that defense is so in order, but they're not in the offensive huddle. Who are they? Who do they have leading their team? What is going on? Dude, the Steelers, right? Their very touted talking point about the Steelers is that we never go under 500 because we have a strong culture. We have a culture where we will be a relevant football team that's buttoned up, show up and play every week, and maybe pull out wins in some of these games where we otherwise would not have been able to. That has been their brand in the last few years. Something's going on, dude. I don't get it. And the one saving grace they had was in the face of a terrible line. No offensive weapons, running backs that run like they got shot. Okay. They had a quarterback that could escape the pocket, that could generate rushes in the red zone, that could when, dude, there's been these compilations they put up of their new right tackle. I think he's new or whatever. The dude just doesn't block. He stands up from his stance and watches the guy run by him, and then Justin breaks a run for 15 yards. I've seen like 6 compilations of that guy just blowing it this year. The only reason that they're 4-2, I would argue, is that level of variability or variance that Fields added to their team. The locker room loved him. I don't know what's going on, man. But their offense is bad. Their offense is bad as a whole. Their weapons are bad. Their team does not function very well. But the only bright spot, they have now benched. And then, are the Jets contenders or pretenders? That is, again, Ted's big point, where we sat there and went through the rankings last week. We looked at all the division. I think the Jets are one of the 2 or 3 most likely teams to grab a wild card spot this year. They're not going to eclipse the Bills in the division, especially not after losing this week. But they're 3-4 after this week. The Steelers might be 4-3. The Bengals might be 3-4. All of a sudden, we get this nice compact. These teams have to know this, dude. They went and traded for Devontae Adams. That's a move you make when you think you're a title contending team. And even though they haven't been prolific in passing, that's a pretty damn good passing core, dude. Breece Hall, Devontae, Garrett Wilson, even Lazard as a 3, I think is perfectly, and Mike Williams as your 3 and 4. That's depth. They're not amazing. And then Conklin's a pretty good receiving tight end. That's a really good receiving core. That is a competent receiving core of players and one of the best receiving backs in football. This offense should be really good. And the Steelers were not able to keep up in games where they've had to. They're kind of front runners. They're kind of defensive playing. We're guessing they cannot do that here. Those impact plays come when you're up by 20, right? And when you're down by 20, it's going to be a lot harder. And the Jets offense looked much better after benching Nat Hackett. Last one is fuck you, Ricky, and fuck putting chili on your pasta, you farm animals. Dude, that's like this thing I see there where they do cheddar covered chili pasta in bars. And oh man. I don't even know what to say about that. I respect the Steelers because those mills, those factories, those refineries are what keep our country running. I respect Pittsburgh. I respect people from Pittsburgh. Steelers fans, get your shit together. Steelers, get your shit together. It's not going to be this week. They're going to lose.
All right. I'm going to try and get into the head of a Mike Tomlin here, right? I get that you are a Justin Fields guy. You are a Justin Fields supporter, the strongest one. When I've watched
Me?
this, yes, yes,
Yeah.
you're a very big Justin Fields guy. You like the kid. You think he brings something to the table. When I
Always.
watch the Pittsburgh Steelers play football, right? Like I think that Justin Fields has a lot of trouble orchestrating the offense. That being said, he's been able to make those plays, right? Like I think he must have 5 or 6 rushing touchdowns on the year, right? The Steelers
Yeah.
haven't scored very much. I think almost 30% or 40% of their scores have been with Justin Fields keeping it, right? But what I think is happening is I think the Steelers are seeing all of the other plays where Justin Fields is missing throws, where he's getting quick in the pocket, he's not going through his reads, right? And I think they're saying, oh, well, maybe Russ can do it better. But what they're failing to understand is that Russ is just so completely ass. Like Russ was done 3 years ago. Like the Broncos chased him out of there with a broom. They said, "Don't come back. We'll just pay you whatever to get off our football team." Right? I don't. If I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't know why you even brought him in the first place. If you were going to sign Justin Fields, I would have just given the team to Fields. You already weren't that good of an offense, right? At least he's kind of made chicken salad out of chicken shit with what he has, right? I don't I don't know what they're thinking. I think the problem, I still think Tomlin's a good coach, right? What I think the issue is it's a team building issue. I think it's Omar Khan, who is a dinosaur, who has put all of his money in the defensive basket. And they have a lot of good impact players on defense, but the issue is they're not the steel curtain from the 70s, right? They're not an overwhelming defense. They're a defense that lives on the impact play. And when your measure of, okay, how are we going to win this game? We absolutely cannot win if the other team goes over 20 points. And we need to keep them under that if we want to have a chance. All right, defense, go out there and do that. It's a very difficult thing to do in today's NFL. I like
Yep.
the way the Jets looked against the Bills on Monday. They lost, but they were competitive. We saw some old Magic Rogers plays, especially with his buddy Devonte Adams in the building, right? I think that the vibes there are probably higher than they should be. I think they walk over the Steelers team, and
Yep.
I think the Russell Wilson experience is done very quickly. I think he's going to pick up a phantom injury after this week, and then it'll be an excuse to shut him down for the year, give it back to Fields after this drubbing they're about to take.
I don't
Ride
think
with
he
us.
can. I think that's the problem. I think they're in a position now where they're going to have to give him 2 or 3 games. It's a mess. It
They're
is a mess what they did.
they're gonna say that they're gonna lose this game really badly, and I think that they're gonna have Russ's calf back up on the injury report. That will be the proxy, right? Like they'll have to come up with a proxy or a reason why they're benching him. They can't just say, "Oh, that was a complete fuck up on our end," right? They're
Yeah.
gonna have to like do something, and it'll be in the form of a phantom injury. I would love to bet that. Like, I don't think you can bet that. I don't think the sports books would allow you to bet that. But if I could bet
No.
on a Russell Wilson injury next week, I'd hammer it if I could.
Yeah, dude. This is like Raiders behavior we're seeing out of the
Yeah,
Steelers.
and I think
Gross.
it'll be done quickly. And then we got our last game of the week, Ravens and Buccaneers. I'm taking the Ravens -3.5 here. This is a doubleheader. It's a Monday night doubleheader. This is the first game of the doubleheader. The over and under is 49.5 points. 51% of the money is on the Ravens against the spread, and 65% of bets are on the Ravens against the spread. So with a 51 to 65 split like this, the whales are kind of leaning towards the Bucks a little bit. So they might call me Joey Public on this one, but that's fine. I'm happy to do it. I mean, I think the most important stat about this game, and I'll just continue to say this until the cows come home or something changes about this, but Lamar Jackson is 23-1 against the NFC in his career. He's the boogeyman for an entire conference. Nobody can figure him out. Nobody really even plays him close except for the command. The Commanders got kind of close, but they still weren't really close that entire game, right? It's just he's a one of a kind player that teams, when they don't see him regularly, or they just don't know how to stop him, right? He brings something to the table that teams like the Steelers actually get to see 2 times a year. The Bengals, the Browns, they actually see it a lot. These teams don't get to see it. There's nothing like it. And they usually there's no preparing for it really. And on that note, right, this Buccaneers defense that is just absolutely reeling is going to try and stop that. And then you add Derrick Henry playing some of the best football of his career to the mix. The Bucs have allowed 63 points over the past 2 weeks. They had the exciting shootout against the Falcons, which they were very close in. They lost a close one. I think they probably should have won that game if Bucky Irving doesn't fumble. But then against the Saints, I think this is the more concerning one. They allowed 27 points to the Spencer Rattler led Saints. I get that Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave were still playing at that time, but this Bucks team hasn't really stopped anyone as of late, and I don't. Why would they stop the Ravens, who have looked like one of the most electric offenses in the NFL over the past 3 weeks? I get that the Ravens' pass defense is sketchy. I've kind of planted my flag on this. I don't know how on this people are. I really do think the Ravens can be had in the passing game, though, and that is going to be the weakness of their team. So Baker and this Bucks team, really, what they want to do is throw the ball all over the yard, right? Like that's something they've done the last 2 weeks. That's really the identity of their football team. This is a Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin football team. So I don't think the Ravens are going to shut him out. I don't think this is going to look like the 2023 Ravens with the elite defense. I think the Bucks are going to score some points here, but you're asking to keep up with this Ravens offense against just a defense that's hemorrhaging points, hemorrhaging yards. I just don't see how they can keep up with it. -3.5, it's just not a great number. I need more than a field goal to win. So like in order for me to be confident enough to place this bet through the wrong side of the number, I have to be pretty sure of this, and I'm pretty sure that this line is just wrong. I think that the Bucks, since they've been great football to watch, right? Like they looked really good in that game against the Falcons, then they put a ass kicking onto the Saints. So I think they're just a little bit overvalued in the market right now. That's not to say they're not a good football team. I actually really like them. I think that Baker's turned around his career in a great way. There's a lot of things to like about this Buccaneers team. The offense looks great. I just think that this is way too short for one of the top two, or potentially even the top team, depending on who you talk to right now. Teams in the AFC. So, for all those reasons, I'm on the Ravens here. I think this one's going to be pretty easy. What do you think, Yanni?
So as I was thinking through when I watched this, I would have just bet the over. 49 and a half is way too low. Like, and so the reason that I didn't bet this game is because I thought there was a chance that the Buccaneers throw for 35, 40 points and then the last minute field goal determines the game. But if I thought that, why didn't I just bet the over? So that's really all I think is I probably, if you're going to bet on this game and if you're confident the Ravens are going to win, to me, you're saying that they're going to score 28 to 35 points just because of how prolific the Bucks are on passing. And if you thought that, then, it'd be like a 60-point game, right? So, yeah, I mean, again, that's really it for me is just the Ravens have struggled against elite passing teams. And I don't know if 3.5, like, is it one on a last minute field goal just because of the way the Bucks should be able to pass the ball at will. So I think you have the right side. If I had to bet on it, I certainly would take the Ravens between the two of them. But I'm also kind of irrationally a Bucks fan. Like that's been a thing between us, right? You make fun of me for, which is fair. You were totally right, and I'm letting go of they're just not a good defense anymore. That those days are gone. So yeah, think you have the right number. I think that's interesting, dude. 65% of the bets, 51% of the money. It's not a huge swing, but 35% of the bettors, 50% of the money. The big money is on the Bucks.
So I have
Um,
a very specific reason why I bet this game, and it's because Baker Mayfield threw 3 picks last week against the New Orleans Saints. So what
yeah,
I think this Ravens team, they're going to be able to score just about every time they touch the ball, right? I think there's
yeah,
going to be one or two Baker mistakes that he makes while he's trying to keep up scoring points. So I see, I don't know, maybe a pick on the wrong side of the field that leads to another Ravens touchdown. Then the math is different, right? Like
yeah,
Baker, he's doing his best to just throw everywhere, right? And just keep the offense going because their defense hasn't been stopping anyone. But I
yeah.
think that's going to open him up to making a couple of mistakes trying to play hero ball. That's why I'm on it. The
I think you're right.
49 and a half, I think I almost should have parlayed this, I think, because I think that's probably right as well. I guess the only situation that over doesn't hit is if the Ravens just blow them out, right? Like, and I think that's a pretty ballsy call to say, yeah, the Ravens hold the Bucks to like under 10 points because I just don't think the defense is the same. Um,
No,
but we'll see. I
I
feel pretty good about this pick though.
yeah, I kind of wish that's kind of a miss. I think on my part, 49 and a half, dude. That's like I think it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a really fun game. The Bucks are becoming one of the best watches in the NFL for
Mm-hmm.
sure. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll see.
And
We'll see
that's
though.
because they're such a good watch. That's why I think I got some value here. Like to me, I think this number should more realistically be like a 6
It
or a
should be
7.
it should be 4.5 or 5.5 at least. I think that's absolutely correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
if here let's play hypotheticals though, right? If the Commanders were 6.5, like, do you think the
Yeah.
Bucks are 3 points better than the Commanders?
That's what I'm saying. Not three, but they are better. They're a better coached defense and better, more talented defense, and they can score offensive points at the rate the Commanders can. So but better. Not 3 points better. I think you got a good value on the number. I again, just the only thing I would worry about is does it become enough of a shootout where they kick a field goal and win the game? I think this is going to come home for you. I think you're going to nail
We'll
this one.
see. And I'll keep my eyes on Bucks Commanders potential playoff matchup, or I guess Redskins Commanders, whatever you want to call them. But at any rate, that's going to do it for us this week. If you made it through the whole video, thank you. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell. It helps out the channel. Let us know in the comments how many weeks you think Russell Wilson lasts as the starter of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm on
Yeah,
one. I think it's a 1 week and done type of deal.
if you have to go at least two, I think you have to go at least two.
All right, and we will catch you next week for the free agent episode.
Thanks, guys.